I want to talk to you today about the enigma or the mystery of seeing double numbers. I am sure that you must have experienced at least once in your life when you look on your watch, yeah, and there's like 11 past 11, 14 past 14 if you use the 24-hour, yeah, clock setting, 7 past 7, you know, or when you're walking past somewhere and you see a number plate 2020. So the seeing of double numbers usually, quite often, if not always, precedes something that is about to happen to you. That is to say, it is in that moment when you're seeing the double numbers, you might receive a message intuitively, an answer for something you were looking for. Yeah? Or you could be in that, or you could, something might happen later during the day, for instance, when you have experienced the watching at 11:11, excuse me. Or even it might not happen the same day, but it will happen soon. Or it is something going on that you're not aware of yet, but you will. That precedes the seeing of the double numbers, precedes the event. Something is happening, but it's personal to you, usually. Or it could be to do with someone else. I'm going to read you an article that I've written in 2017 that talks about this in more depth. Suffice to say is that when you're seeing the double numbers, what happens is you are in a sort of a trance state where the information that needs to be communicated to you is communicated, usually intuitively or in dreams or in visions. It opens the door, if you like, to the dimension of the spirit for something to come through. So the something that comes through, it could be an information or an answer or insight that you need, or it could be something more. A lot of people have have told me, and I've experienced this personally too, that at the time of death, not their own death, but someone close to them, they will start to see doubling numbers. 1111 is usually the most popular number. And what does it mean, for instance? I'll give you just a gist of where I'm leading with this. Is what does it mean when the doubling numbers happen? If you, for instance, take any number, now let's say 77. So what it means is 17 is to do with this dimension of reality, the visible dimension of reality, while the other, on the other side, is to do with the invisible reality of the spirit. In other words, the two dimensions come together. That's like 1111 or 77 or 2020. You have this opening of a door, of a crack between time and timeless, you know, the visible, the physical and the spiritual. So that's what usually happens. Or you could look at it another way is, for instance, you know, with the eyes. I usually use the example of the eyes. One is looking outside and one is looking inward. And it's the intuition that mediates between the two. That's why the answers are usually intuitive. Usually in your dreams, you know, something you receive something and it's already there. Okay? So, I'm going to read you an article. It's a longish article, a few pages, to give you an example of the things that have happened around me, or the people that around me that this doubling of the numbers occurs. And it's not only to do with your own personal things, but a lot of times it has to do, if you're closer to someone, someone needs help, or someone is actually going to pass away. A friend of mine, I will read you, you know, she experienced this at the time of someone close to her passing away. But there's another option, there's another important thing to this dimension too, that not only at the time of passing away, but at the time of someone coming, or a new soul, new birth coming into this world as well, there could be the seeing of the double numbers. Okay, so I'll read you what I wrote in 2017. Another really interesting thing about this is that there was an incident in Charlottesville, I believe, in US in 2017, where a car plowed into a crowd of protesters. You know, they were protesting against the right wing something in Charlottesville, and one of the right wing men, he obviously got angry. He plowed into the crowd with his car, and he killed a woman, a young girl, a young woman. And what do you know? What was on his number plate? 1111. So you see, when the archetype is activated, the seeing of the double numbers, especially like 1111, the door, as it were, opens between this dimension and the dimension of the spirit. So something can come through, but something can also leave, like death. This was the archetype of death at 1111 with this number plate of 1111. He plowed his car into the crowd, killed the girl, and the number plate said 1111. So you see? All right, so I'll read you the article. It's a rather a long article, but it will give you the gist of what I was just saying. I'm going to skip the intro because the intro is exactly the same what I've just told you. And I'll give you the stories, probably more interesting to you anyway. So, reading from my article now. The first story arrived some years ago through email, perhaps around the middle of June, and was from a very close acquaintance who not only knows very little of spiritual things, but is also rather afraid of them. She was very afraid. In her message, she asked me to explain why every time she looked at a clock, it always showed exactly 11:11, or precisely 11 minutes past the hour. Now, I tried to explain that 11 is a number of transcendence, pointing beyond ourselves to the impersonal, eternal center within us, within which we find a true source, the eternal part, from which we come and back to which we return. This is important. Yeah? Eternal being of beings, the mystery of being, the mystery of the universe and oneself within it. I even send examples from mythology and depth psychology about this timeless dimension of a mystery and all that. As you can imagine, unless someone has already made the connection between the inward source and the source in mythological story, or better, still already had a living experience of having gone beyond the wall of tick or time and experienced the mystery of being, and then proceeded and then process the insights by comparing it to other such examples, they can fail to make a connection to their own incident, and all my well-meaning explanations simply fell flat. Now, what I'm saying here is, if you have your own experience of going beyond the veil of duality, a veil of time. This is in mysticism, this is called dying before dying, or in more simpler terms, this is going out of the body, having an out-of-body experience. And this is actually connected with the process of dying. Many people who are on the deathbed, they report that this is what happens to them. It's a process of enlightenment as well. Because you've got to go beyond to where the dead are going, to where the soul goes, through the center to the other side. Okay, that's not easy to understand if you haven't had the experience yourself. So there she is. She sent me the email. Where was I? Okay. And as I didn't have access to the acquaintance dream content, perhaps the answer might have been already in there, Not getting anywhere, I thought to let it go and allow time to review what was going on at that time in her life, when 1111 was so important. I had to wait a few months for the answer, but it eventually arrived in an email announcing her pregnancy. See? It turned out that right at the time of this enigma of 1111 was haunting my friend, and unknown to her, she conceived a child. So it's not only at the time of dying that we experience this 1111, but more importantly as well, it is when you are, when you perhaps, or someone else close to you, if you're dreaming for someone, if you're thinking about someone, or if you're very close to them, you will start to see these connections through the doubling numbers because they got pregnant, she got pregnant. In other words, life comes through the open portal, if you like, of the symbology of 1111, and life leaves through the same portal of 1111. You know, when the door is open, life comes to this dimension of everyday life. But when the door is also open, life leaves when someone dies. And when someone dies, I have another story about that, which I'll read you now. Another time, a friend informed me that her terminally ill son was moved into a palliative care, and when she glanced at her watch at the time of writing to me, she noticed it was 1111. See? There are a time of transcending back into the source was at hand. So just what I said. So it's when someone is going to come alive, a new life is going to come to this dimension of physical reality, that we see the doubling numbers. The portal, the door is open. The fissure between this time and the dimension of the spirit is open. But when someone is about to leave, it's exactly the same. The door is open and you will start to see 1111. I am sure that many of you have experienced the 1111 or another number, and you might have received some kind of intuitive wisdom, inside answer or something like that, but there could be a deeper problem with this as well, associated with perhaps someone passing away or someone coming, a new life coming into your family. Okay, so this was this. What else do I have? Okay, this is what I'm saying about the Charlottesville. In 2017, in Charlottesville, Virginia, US, a 20-year-old man plowed his car into a crowd of people protesting against white supremacy and killed a young woman. And I was just telling you this. The number plate of this car read 1111. Huh? The time of death, the time when the soul returns to its greater soul, when the veil is lifted between the dimension of phenomenal and numinous life, is often symbolized in everyday life by the enigma of 1111. So these just few examples are more than enough. I mean, I could rattle off. The article keeps going. My article is long, and I'm not going to bore you with reading the whole thing. And I'm not the best reader of articles, on a camera or whatever. I'm much better at writing and speaking just directly without having to read. But I will tell you, from my own experiences, just the other day, actually yesterday, I had a question in my mind and I kept staying with that question. And as I was just in bed and I was ready to fall asleep, it happens when your mind is clear. It happens when you're in that trance state. You're not preoccupied with anything, but you're loosely kind of focused on the question or what's going on around you. You pay attention to what's going on. Another way to explain this is like a cat watching a mouse hole. He's not bothered, he's not trying to get the mouse out of the mouse hole. He's just sitting there and watching and ready at the moment the mouse comes to pounce. This is exactly the same thing. You're not bothered, you're not looking for, you're not chasing, you're not running around like a headless chicken to find the answer. You've stated your question clearly to the spirit, to the other dimension, to the soul, and you're staying with it. And there I was, just last night in bed. I pick up my mobile phone, I turn it on, swipe it, turn it on, and there's 14:14 on the time showing on the phone. My ear rang, and in that moment I just got the answer that I needed to whatever it is that I was looking for, an answer to the question I had. It's really that simple, but you gotta pay attention. I'll give you another example with this 1111. Actually, I see on Facebook people are writing about this and taking, screenshots of their phone where they have a doubling number shown all the time. My question would be to these people is, what happened at that time when you saw that 1111? Do you remember what intuitively popped into your head? Because you're receiving that moment of insight, just of that moment of opening of the fissure, of the seeing double, the door between the two dimensions. There's no wall. The wall has been removed. So something, whatever. If you want to know something, it made that the time that special time makes that available to you. So my question would be to all these people. I see these, screenshots of their phone, and people are saying, "Oh, I've just said." But what happened at that moment? I'm sorry, I'm checking my time because my phone has got limited memory, but we're still okay. What happened at that moment when you saw the doubling numbers? What happened at that moment when you see, like that number plate in Charlottesville in Virginia? Did you make that connection that the door between dimensions was open and that woman died? That someone was being, either an answer was being given to someone, or or as it actually was, because the car that plowed into the crowd had a number plate of 1111. The door opened, the wall was removed, and at that moment when he ran into people, someone died. Someone left this dimension, and that was symbolized just in his number. What are the chances of that? Do you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, what happens to you? What is it that you pay attention? Be curious. Pay attention to the moment when you're seeing the doubling numbers. It's very, very important, because then if you had a question in your mind and you needed an answer to, and you're seeing a double number, remember what spontaneously popped into your mind, into your imagination. Okay? Or in that moment, for instance, if you're watching a movie, watching movies is great to find that moment of trance, because you're not thinking about anything, you're not bothered, you're just kind of glancing and watching. If you can switch off, and you just simply, you're listening but you're not listening, you're seeing but you're not seeing, then you reach that space when you're in between the two dimensions. The wall has been removed, the veil is lifted, and something comes through. You make a connection. That's what it means to be in the center. That's it. That's all it is. And it's intuitive. It's intuitive because it's spontaneously an image or a word or a whole download of information can in an instant be received in your mind's eye. That's all it is. It's real. Like I said, I've given you some examples. The moment of death, and the moment of someone, the moment someone leaves through this opening in the door between these two dimensions of this and the other world, or someone comes to be reborn again or born anew, So this is really what I wanted to talk to you about. It's a difficult subject without you having experienced this for yourself. I'm sure that you have experienced doubling numbers. The difficulty comes in making a connection to what happened to you while you were seeing the doubling numbers, what happened around you, in your environment, in your life. Or intuitively, did you receive an answer? You know, did you have an important dream? Did you write it down? Did you remember it? Because it's all important. At that time when it happens, it's important. It is a gift to you at that time. So this is seeing double numbers. You know, like one eye closed, one eye open, one looking inward, one looking out. Like the ancient, like the Norse god Odin. And Odin was the highest god. He was a god of trance, of poetry, of spirit. You know, the warriors would call on Odin to give them that frenzy, that trance state, that they were not afraid to plunge into war and hack other people to death or be hacked to death. You know, you're in that center, in that moment where you can't be, you can't lose. When you're centered, you can't lose. And lots of people who are talented sports people, they will tell you they are in that moment when something takes over. It's not them, something else takes over. And that's when they win. Whether running or soccer or football, golf, you're centered. That's Zen. You know, Zen is just being centered in that moment and something happens. That's what the famous Japanese swordsmen were. You know, the, what are they called? You know what I'm saying. The famous, you know, and they were, when he would fight his opponent, sometimes they would just stand there and look at each other for hours and hours and hours, even days, without you know, lifting out the sword from the scabbard. It was looking for that center, that moment when they finally can let go and something else takes over, and that's when they win. You know. So this is what I'm talking about, this doubling of the numbers. So pay attention, be curious. 1111 is you know, it's the most common number, but there is also 77 and 2020. Everything, doubling of everything, even word, doubling of words. The doubling is also, you know, in alchemy. It was Jung wrote about it all the time. Something's about to happen when you had the, you know, seeing doubling in the dreams, because you got the double-headed eagle in alchemy. One looking that way, one looking this way, and it's the middle way. This is the Buddha's middle way, you know. That was his teaching, Buddha's teaching. The whole teaching was the middle way, you know. The nirvana, the center, being in the center. And then something happens. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.